So how was that? And just a little bit of framing. How many of you thought, oh, I really don't want to do this? And now you've done it, you think, well, it wasn't that bad after all. Is that fair? So that's why I try sometimes to avoid the questions immediately after a demonstration, because I think sometimes when you do it, it kind of brings it to life a little more. So any comments, thoughts? I appreciate it's slightly odd, but there we are. Welcome to NLP.
What I found interesting is that no one ever really asked these questions, especially like, who are you and what is your bigger purpose? I mean, I hadn't really thought about the answers before. So in a way, it's surprising that we don't ask these proper questions more, rather than just the first two, where are you from, where do you live, and what do you do? Normally it just stops there. We don't go any deeper than that.
Great. No, it's a great observation. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? Sorry? I don't know. Okay, we'll talk then. Come.
Well, I found it very interesting, especially yes, these questions like who are you metaphorically or who are you?
Yeah.
I think a long time ago, once someone asked me, I would have said, oh, I'm Mrs. Siddiqui or I'm a mother. But just now, I think coming over these years, I'm just saying, who am I? I think I'm just a kind, generous person who wants to give. So perceptions of these change with time, I think.
Right. Let me just repeat back what you said there. So you said if somebody asked who you were a number of years ago, you may have kind of introduced yourself more as a role, as a mother or a wife, or as in a work role or something like that. But now you might describe yourself more kind of, as you said, as a I don't know, kind and generous person or something like that, or you care for others. So you've noticed that that's a shift in the way that you maybe define yourself. And I think that that's really an interesting piece about identity. How do we define ourselves? Because I'll be touching on that in a minute. But thank you. Yes. Anyone else?
I think in addition to that as well, the question of what do you do, everybody answers that with their job, more or less. And I think it's quite interesting to think, is that all that you do, or is there, are there other ways of answering that question?
Great. So oftentimes when people say, what do you do? An answer would be kind of, I am a something. So that you would answer what do you do as a sort of an identity level. And I think, and again, I'm going to sort of talk about that in a minute, but maybe I'll talk about it now. But maybe any further comments, because I think that's relevant as well. Yes, go ahead.
I think it's interesting to think about this and how you answer the questions in relation to your current context. And what, are you connected to this, or are you disconnected? Where are you?
So you said that it's interesting in terms of your current context. So could you give me an example of a context for you in this situation? Okay.
I'm actually quite connected at the moment, but you might be doing a job which is not fulfilling your purpose, which is not aligned with your purpose.
Right.
And this might get you thinking about that.
Okay.
That
So
might lead to some change.
great. So you could be doing a job, I'll just repeat what you said, which isn't aligned to your purpose. And then questions like this could open up something and might inspire you to have a change.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So, yeah, well, I mean, as you've brought it up, I think I may as well go over it now. This idea, it's a kind of key theme about identity and what you do. So I have I've kind of lost one of my juggling balls. No, I'm going to find it. Ugh. I thought I'd lost it forever until the stage was removed. So I'm going to do a sort of little slightly childish thing, but try and prove a point. So I'm going to do this. Somebody asked me, are you a juggler? No. I wouldn't define myself as a juggler. I would say I can, at the level of capability, juggle, but I wouldn't say I am a juggler. Now, now ask me. Yes, I'm a drummer. So, how did this come about? Why, you might be thinking, I'm just doing things with little objects. Why does one, identify me? So, one of the nice things about defining myself as a drummer, I am a drummer, is I met a quite famous drummer, I don't know, a little while ago. And he said, I'm a drummer. I said, I'm a drummer too. Oh, we had a long conversation. We're drummers together. We're part of a sort of drummer group. And it's also an interesting thing that as you move up the logical levels, you start off, as you imply, if somebody says, what do you do? When you first start a job, you're not very good at it, but then over a period of time, you become more and more expert at it until eventually you identify with it and you say, I am that thing. Now, this has pros and cons. Here's a good example of a pro. If you met somebody and let's say you were ill and you went to see a doctor and the doctor said to you, are you a doctor? And he said, no. Well, she said, no, I'm not a doctor. I mean, I have the skills in medicine, but in terms of who I am, no, it's sort of more deep than that. You probably think, I'm looking for a different surgeon. This doesn't work for me, right? You want to meet someone who says, I'm a doctor. It gives you a sense of, this person is well committed to this role. But what happens when someone comes to retirement, redundancy, something like that? So often, children leaving home, their roles suddenly change. And when someone is so invested in the role that they say, I am an accountant, I am a doctor, I am an HR professional, I am a pilot, I am a fill in the blank for whatever you may say for yourself, then when that role ends, there's an existential crisis. I cease to exist. There's some, lots of research showing that people often die very soon after retirement. Have you ever heard this thing where people say, when I retire, I want to play golf? And have you noticed how golf courses and cemeteries look so similar? You ever wondered why? No, sorry, it's a dark joke. But it's a kind of key point, though, isn't it? That the problem about identifying too strongly with your work role is one day that is not going to be available to you anymore in all practicality. Should I share some personal stories about this? So I had a business. I sold it, I think I mentioned, a couple of years ago. So I was a relatively big cheese in my little mini dairy business. I wasn't actually using that as a metaphor. It wouldn't have anything to do with cheese. So for a while, I thought, well, hang on, I'm not the man I used to be. There's certain people I would call up. They wouldn't take my call anymore. I've lost this identity. But fortunately, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. I've been working on this forever. So when it came, 3 or 4 weeks later, I thought, it's not so bad. I didn't have so much to do. I didn't have so much pressure. It's all good. I'm not so identified with that role. I can keep going on my other roles. So I thought, now I've retired, semi-retired, I've got a bit more time, I'm going to write a novel. Most people want to do this at some point, or many people, I don't know. Show of hands, how many of you would like to write a novel someday? 20%, 30%? Yeah, maybe. I've written various books, but they're more like textbooks, right? They're more straightforward. But writing a novel, this was like, oh, I think that's nice. I sound like a real writer. I've written a book. So here's a bit of a problem, because at the level of identity, do I identify myself as a sort of artistic writer-type person? No. When I was 16, back to my identity-forming moment, I was at school, and the teacher said to me, you're not good enough to do English literature, and in fact, you're not really good enough at English altogether. Just push yourself past, English language GCSE, or O-level it was at the time, get yourself a C, don't shoot too high, then you can do your science and just ignore all that English. And I was like, thanks. Anyway, so at the end of that, I kind of didn't really think that I didn't say I am a writer after that experience, did I? So I never wrote anything, any fiction or any novels or any short stories or developed any characters at all, ever. Now, for the past sort of like couple of years, I've been trying to write a novel, and I'm full of doubt. You know, but what is this about? Because the problem is that I start off saying, I am a writer, but I'm not a writer. So then I'm sort of caught up in my mind, and all these things happened to me, and they were cruel to me when I was young, and if it wasn't for them, they stopped me, and, you know, and I can't do it. And all the time I'm doing all this bullshit. Am I writing? No, I'm not writing anything. It's all going on in my head. I'm achieving nothing. So anyway, as I sort of value writing, something which is important to me, I thought, well, maybe I need to learn the capability. And then I had an epiphany. And that was, in fact, if I let go of the need to be a successful writer and just get into enjoying the process of writing and enjoying the process of learning how to become a writer, then eventually I will either become a good writer or I won't. But if I don't enjoy the process, there's no point in doing it anyway. And I think this is a truism for so many of us. If you think, I can't make money, or I can't get fit, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. So often there was some limiting belief in your childhood that told you, this is not for you. You can't do this. Other people can, but somehow you can't. And there's something that stops you doing it. But when you look at people who are good at it, they just spend a lot of time developing the craft because they had beliefs about their capability. If you believe that if you value something and you believe you're capable of acquiring that skill, and you spend your time doing that, you may move up. But if you spend all your time worrying about who I am and will I make it and am I good enough and all this, you're going nowhere and you're spinning the wheels. This is slightly contrary to the logical levels model, which says that if you change something at the top, it moves downward. So the idea is once you have a sense of purpose, that will cascade downwards. Well, if you change your environment, that may or may not have an effect moving up. But I think that it is this kind of really important piece about that at some level, it's down to behavior. You've got to just do it. And when you let go of a need of wanting to say, I'm great at it, or I am that thing, and just enjoy doing it, maybe it'll lead somewhere. Because that's who, if somebody's good at something, they're just good at it. They just have learnt the craft, right? So I'm now learning the craft, and I'm enjoying it. Whether the book will be any good at the end of it, I don't know. I hope so, but we'll see. All right. There is a little bit more on the logical levels. Can you endure any more on it, or you can kind of go on for the rest of your life? I have a sense it might be enough for today, but there is a whole bit more on this model, which is called Coach to Awakener. And I think I'm going to press pause on this now and maybe move on to the next section. But the idea is that this is from Robert Dilt's book, Coach to Awakener, saying that you would coach people in different ways for each of the different levels. Do you want me to cover that, or is this enough? Yes, you want me to cover it. All right, I'm covering it. Okay, I sort of wimp out to talk about the logical levels for eternity, but we're moving on. Okay, Coach to Awakener model, do it quickly. So, if you are coaching someone, at some level you're their guide. You will help them, telling them what books are good, what websites are good, who they could contact. I've had clients contact me and I say, I know somebody you could talk to. So I put them in touch, I introduce them. Don't take a commission. I'm not allowed to do that as a coach, right? That's different. But you're a guide in the environment. It's a kind of basic point, yeah. The level of coach, you're kind of helping someone prepare for behaviorally. So coaching at the level of behavior is often that classic form of coaching where you say, what are you going to do? What's the next step? Do you want to sort of practice this? So you're helping someone rehearse for something, which is a kind of classic sports coaching, but is also very useful. If I have a client who has a big presentation to give or a very, very disturbing conversation that they're really worried about having, giving them an opportunity to kind of rehearse with me can be very helpful. At the level of capability, I'm a teacher. So I remember once I was coaching a chap who was an accountant, and he was of an age that he hadn't studied much marketing. When he qualified as an accountant back in whenever it was, there was no marketing. So I told him about something called the Boston Consultancy Matrix. Have you heard of that? This is that a product can be either a star, a rising star, a cash cow, a problem child, or a dog. Dog being not very good, star being good, and gradations. That didn't take long to teach, that model. I mean, you can explain it a bit more, but it's fairly obvious. Anyway, this guy thought it was brilliant. And when I saw him 3 weeks later, he'd classified all his partners into those 5 categories. Exactly what I had in mind, but anyway. So at the level of capability, I am a teacher. But I think a nice example is like my younger daughter once ran into the room and she said, Dad, I can't do my maths problem. She's a bit older now, she's 22, she wouldn't be doing this anymore, hopefully. But she was much younger at the point. And she showed it to me and she said, I can't do it. And I said, so what specifically can't you do? She looked at it and said, I just can't do it. And I said, yeah, but what part of it can't you do? She said, I can't do it. I said, yes, but specifically what part of it can't you do? Oh, I see. Thanks, Dad. And off she went. So, was that a great moment of teaching or coaching? I'd say coaching. And I think, good teaching often involves encouraging someone to work it out for themselves. And I think your point earlier, although it takes more energy to coach someone and encourage them to think and work things out for themselves and just sit there providing a listening space, the payoff is great because they then become self-motivated and self-educating and self-everything, and sooner or later, hopefully, they'll just do it all on their own and leave you in peace, which is a positive sort of thought. The level of beliefs and values, I am a mentor. Now, one time, because of my journey of NLP, I've tried everything. I've been on personal development courses, I've had therapy, I've had coaching, I've had hypnosis, I've done yoga. I'm like an affluent housewife. I've done it all. But I hadn't had a mentor. So I thought, okay, maybe I can find someone who's like, a retired business person who can kind of come along and tell me whatever it's like. And I met this guy. And through an agency, he worked, doing this as a sort of part-time thing. And he came along and he did this. Hello, my name's Barry Pearson. And Barry Pearson was born lucky. So this guy was a bit strange. He was a kind of elderly guy. And he talked about himself in the third person, which was particularly strange. So he would say, Barry Pearson wake up in the morning, Barry Pearson get in Barry's car, Barry drive to Calf, Barry like big breakfast in the morning, get Barry going. So he did. He literally spoke like that. He was kind of quite a weird guy. But he seemed to have an unstoppable energy about it. I didn't need him to teach me about business. I already knew a fair bit about it. I didn't need, at the level of identity, to model him and become Barry Pearson. Otherwise, today, I would be, hello, my name's Robbie Steinhaus. And Robbie Steinhaus, that would be weird, wouldn't it? You don't want to model someone at that level. But beliefs and values. I remember I had one of those moments where I wasn't sure. Have you had one of those moments where you want to do something and you're not sure? And I told him, I said, I want to do this thing, Barry, but I'm not sure. I said, lots of people are going to dislike it. It's going to be very unpopular. I'm not sure, but I really want to do it. He said, of course you should do it, lad. Push past it and do it. I do it, you can do it, anyone can do it. Just get on with it and do it. I went, okay, I'll do it then. And I did it, and it all worked out. So that's good. So at some level, I am modeling Barry at the level of beliefs and values. A mentor is be the change, as Gandhi said. Sponsor. So sponsorship is often taken to be paying athletes large amounts of money to run around in various shoes. But sponsorship in this technique is that you care for who someone is rather than what they do. Have you ever seen a company where it says, our people are our most valuable resource? And the boss walks in through the door, ignores everyone, and walks straight to their office. Doesn't say good morning to a soul. Yes? Are they representing? Does they really care about their people that much? So sponsorship, you also can see it the other way around. Have you been in a situation where, like my English teacher, someone didn't really care for who you were at some point in your life, a teacher, a parent, whatever, and, I don't know, a manager. Did you like that? No. So I think that there is something at the level of identity, and it's a really key thing as a coach. If I can care for who someone is rather than what they do, that can really be very powerful for them. Remember once I had a client, he offered to do all sorts of things for me when I met him at some event. And I said to him, I sense you do a lot of things for people, but who's there for you? A little tear ran down his face, and he made me his coach. So there we are. It's a good sales pitch too. But more sincere thing, possibly the most important thing as a coach, is caring for who someone is, genuinely caring. And if you don't care, it's probably not a great profession for you. Lastly, awakener. So the Robert Frost, the American poet and writer, said, "I am not a coach, I am an awakener." And he didn't say that. He said, "I am not a teacher, I am an awakener." There we are. And I think there's a kind of lovely idea about awakening. Some of the things that we do on NLP training, such as a hero's journey, awakens in someone the opportunity, as you said earlier, of purpose. That sense of, what is my calling? What am I being called to do in this world? And sometimes when I've had the opportunity to work at that level of awakener, where somebody, you know, it can be in business or in personal life, somebody suddenly has a sense of, wow, actually I could do something. Things are possible. There's a lovely kind of energy there, and it's an energy that you need to sort of hold with that person quite gently. Because that's possibly the kind of punchline of this, is energetically each one of these levels are different. The awakener is quite gentle. Sponsor, very gentle, right? Mentor, you can be quite tough. You can express, you know, kind of, this is how I am. Maybe you want to model the beliefs and values. Teacher, more nuts and bolts. Coach, again, more nuts and bolts, and so is guide. So each one energetically different. So that's the coach to awakener model. You coach at all of the logical levels when you are an NLP coach. Okay. Is that enough on the logical levels? Good. All right. So, no more